Moses, Joshua, Mugabi, Ngero, and I'm one of the moderators for today's class. So today's class, let's begin with an opening prayer by Miss Sanyu Anit. Miss Sanyu Anit, please give us an opening prayer.
Thank you, Joshua. Good evening, scholars. May we humble ourselves for an opening prayer, gift of providence. We thank you for the gift of education, Lord God. We thank you for all the situation that is going on in the world. Lord, you know why it is happening. Therefore, we ask you, Lord Jesus Christ, to help us go through this situation of COVID-19 that has affected everything in the world, especially the education sector. Lord Jesus Christ, we ask you kindly to send us your Holy Spirit to guide us throughout our meeting today so that we may be able to grasp and understand whatever will be said during the meeting. In Jesus' name we have prayed.
Amen. Amen. Thank you very much, Sanyu. And let's at this juncture, let's dive into the semester song. And I will request Mr. Wambale Bernard to share his screen so that we can follow through with the lyrics. Thank you very much. So the semester song, this semester we are having What a Friend in Jesus as our semester song. Why do we sing this song? We usually sing it at the beginning of class it's usually a hymn or something to motivate us so that we praise and worship God as we begin class, and it usually has a message that guides us for that semester. That's why we have this culture of the semester song, and we sing it at every beginning of class. So let's start.
What a friend we have in Jesus. All our sins and griefs to bear. What a privilege to carry. And a soul is there. In you will find a solace there.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bwambale. And at this juncture, let's dive into the presentation by our guest speaker. And I would love to invite our dear head of department, Madam Tumwebaze Pamela, to invite the guest speaker. Madam Pamela, the floor is yours.
Good evening, scholars. It's been a while. I want to extend my appreciation to all who came to me at the hospital, and I'm very pleased with you. Thank you. Thank you so much for the calls and the prayers and the texts. I could feel the love, and I'm grateful to you for that. And on listening to our semester song, it's very encouraging to know that in spite of all that is going on, we have a friend in Jesus. And I pray that we shall take that to heart. We shall hang on every word that the Lord says to us, and to know that that is where we can derive strength, and it is where we can actually derive life and the wisdom to go on. Maybe there are some opportunities that God wants us to grab in this period, and we need to open our eyes wide so that we can see what they are. With all that said, I first met Professor Salita on the way. I was driving somewhere and I had heard about him, and I stopped him and introduced myself, and then we became friends, and he actually, I was surprised that I was interacting with someone who had a PhD in engineering from the University of Georgia, big name, has studied big things, and the person is willing to come down and speak to me. And he was even willing to work with us in Honors College and see how best we can actually improve ourselves. So he's, I know we had him last week, and when I am going to listen to him with you scholars, I'm excited because he's a friend of the college. He's a very good friend to the college. I hope that that he will continue to give us a critical eye, and we can keep him close no matter what is happening. And so I'm excited to introduce Professor Salita. I do not want to talk about him as though he's high up above there and far from us. He's a friend of the college. That's the comfortable description I can think about. And so, Professor, you're welcome. I invite you to please start speaking to us. Thank you.
I need to unmute. Oh, no, I'm muted. Well, thank you very much for the introduction. I feel it makes me feel good inside that I'm looked at as a friend, and I'm welcomed as a friend, not as a professor or somebody who is perhaps different, but somebody who's just like everybody else on this call. So today, I introduced a bit of myself in the first lecture or conversation I had last week. So I won't do that again. And I've put together a series of 3 lectures. So and in the context of the theme for this year in Honors College, which is so that again, being relevant. So this will be a shorter second segment. I've shortened it to fit in 30 minutes. So it's best that I share my slides because I'm going to use PPT slides. And I think if you allow me to share, I'll just go ahead and do that. So as you can see, I have, let me see, for last week, this is what we had. We had a long conversation. I think I was here for about more than 2 hours because we had lunch and we continued to talk with the students that were present here. And I really enjoyed that. So what we talked about was really making a case for the value of undergraduate research experiences, broken down into 7 segments. I think this conversation was taped. Those of you perhaps were not in this conversation, perhaps this can be available. So today, I want to continue with what I call two, be relevant two. And I'm going to talk about the main job that I'm doing here while I'm here is to develop a sustainable development center at UCU. And I think, you know, I've abbreviated the talk. I've given this talk to a number of people. It can run very long, but I've abbreviated it to keep it to the point where it's an example, one example through which students, the honors college and elsewhere can seek being relevant. So let me get into it. The idea of developing a sustainable development center here is consistent with the theme of the new administration that talking about the university being research-led. And it's consistent on another level because of the inspiration. I've put these 17 Sustainable Development Goals by the UN that have become a roadmap. If you look at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, they speak about things like no poverty, zero hunger, good health, quality education, gender equality, and so on and so forth. These are things that perhaps as Christians, we hold dear to us. I sometimes feel that these are some of the things that we are asked to do. And so if I combine the religious connotation and combine the fact that the university is speaking about being research-led, the Sustainable Development Center becomes a central piece as far as I'm concerned. So to give you a little bit of, you can't do something and do everything. You have to have what you call, I'd call it a sweet spot. And what we're looking at here is working both in terms of inquiry research, in terms of outreach, going out and taking the message to the ordinary people, and instruction being what we teach at undergraduate level, graduate level, and even maybe teach students who are what we would call have perhaps dropped out. This is an opportunity that I think we should take advantage of to enhance their ability to do better. So the sweet spot is at the intersection of water, energy, food, and feed. This is if you just go on the street and try to talk to people who are less fortunate than most of us and talk to them about what their problems are, you're going to find somehow these three things interact. Somehow, some may be stronger than others. And so it becomes an area where I think if this is the focus, we have a chance to make a big difference. So, you know, what's the grand development problem? The grand development problem is kind of captured by this pyramid. This pyramid comes out of a professor at the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor, published some time back. The numbers are not all that accurate, but because of time, I think it requires being updated. But let me walk you through it. So it captures, you know, in a very simple way, what it is that we could do to make a difference. So on my right, there are population. You can see If you add 4 to, you have a little bit over 6 billion people. But perhaps the population is larger now. When it was done, this was the population. On my left axis is earning by these people. Put in the context of, or in terms of economists call purchasing power parity. What this means is that they have evened a Uganda shilling versus an Indian rupee versus an American dollar, so that they put it in equivalent of what that money can buy. So that we can make a comparison. You know, if a loaf of bread in Uganda costs 4,000 shillings, that's just about $1, but it costs in the US maybe $1.50. The US $1.50 then is equivalent to the 4,000 shillings. And therefore, the power parity dollar is evened out so that it means the same thing everywhere. So the point of the slides to show that 4 billion people are in tier 1. I'm sorry, tier 5. Tier 5, they're making a year less than $1,500. And you've got tier 4 that makes $1,500, and so on and so forth. And at the top, you see those who are making more than $20,000. So the grand development challenge is to reduce the number of people in tier 5 so that they move up. This is considered by a lot of people to be the most holistic way we can improve people's well-being. If we get them to make more money, they can take kids to school, they can buy medicines, they can participate in the economy by buying clothes, uniforms, and what have you. So it looks like if one focuses on saying, well, how do I increase people in tier 5's income to move up? If you figure out how you can do that, then you are holistically addressing the things we saw in that UN in that UN chart. I think I want to stop here and see if there are questions or comments or contributions to what we've said before I go any further. Maybe we can entertain like a 3 in the interest of time. I think they can come in the chat as well. Okay. Mr. Wambale will read if they come in the chat so that I focus on answering them.
Scholars, if you have any questions, you can raise up your hand via the tools available in the Zoom, and then if you have, if you're unable to speak, you can text via the chat. I think there is no question.
Okay, well, then we'll move on. And just keep me honest on time so that I don't go over. Okay, well, I'll continue. I want to continue to put that chart with just the pyramid in the Ugandan context. I took this out of a New Vision report that Nicholas Wasaja, who is the reporter or writer, picked from a report that was being presented to the parliament. The report was being presented by Minister of Gender, Labor, and Social Development. And the main thing was 70% of Ugandans live on less than 4,000 shillings a day, which comes to approximately $400 per year. Now put that in the pyramid we just seen above. 70% of Ugandans are at the bottom of that pyramid, probably more than that, because the cutoff was $1,500. Now, you know, when you hear this, your first instinct is to say, I don't believe it. But you know what? If you go and just go on the street and talk to people, you'll find that this is true. We know these people. You know, I took a bus ride when I first got here to Lila, and as the bus goes through from Kampala to Lila, you stop at places, and there are these people who are trying to sell you water or trying to sell you pineapples. The way the business is structured is that there is somebody who owns the water. They bring the bottle to the people in the bus, and they make a very small amount of money on that bottle. So depending on how many they sell a day, and they probably don't sell too many, it's easy for us to begin to think of these people belonging to this category. Or if you travel by public means and you go through one of the busy parks, car parks, there are these people who are doing the same thing, and there are many of them. So I think, you know, much as if you don't belong to this population, much as it's difficult to believe, it is true. I think this is done in a scholarly way. So what a call for us to say, I think if you're going to be relevant, what relevance means to me in some way, perhaps doing something about changing this dynamic. Whichever way you do it is a way that I think makes you relevant. The question is, of course, relevant to who? I think relevant in the eyes of our Creator, relevant in the eyes of our relatives, mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers, and so on. Relevant in the eyes, if you have children, of our children. There is that relevancy, and I think it rhymes well with the theme of this semester for Honors College. So I want to move on to this slide. This is a slide that I want to use to maybe to hash out what I call the 3 core center values. And it's going to lead me into what I call study cases. And I think the combination of the study cases and this slide makes it easier for you to find your niche in this development challenge, where you feel you can fit and you can contribute, maybe directly or indirectly, to the grand problem, which if we put in a Ugandan context, those 70% of our brethren that are living on 4,000 shillings a day. So let me walk with you through this slide. You know, on the y-axis, we have, I don't think they see, do you see it that well, or this chart is covering the label? Do you see the, do you see it, I don't know how to get rid of these. Huh?
Just down the table, like on the x-axis.
Yes, diffusion. It's visible to everybody. Okay, okay, very good. So we have this diffusion of innovations, which means, in a way, commercializing or getting wide population using the innovation. And on the y-axis, which is the y, this is the y-axis, we have STEM complexity. The center is STEM driven, science, technology, engineering, math driven. So up on the scale are PhDs and what have you, people who are making inquiry at the highest level. And at the bottom are people maybe could be high school or very little education. They can also make innovations that can intervene in the challenge we talked about. And on this axis is extent, just extent of how it's used. So dividing this in 4 quadrants is for simplicity. And each quadrant would put a technology example that shows, for example, if you take mobile phone technology, I think 1 out of 4 sub-Saharan Africans have one. Even when people don't have running water, or, you know, or any of those things that we consider essential, you're going to find that they're going to have a mobile phone. So to make a mobile phone requires very high STEM, and it is very highly diffused. So you can get the same interpretation everywhere. If you look at genetically engineered crop technology, it requires very high STEM, but it's not very highly diffused. And domestic biogas is in the left bottom quadrant, where it doesn't require a lot of high tech to do, but we've had challenges in this country and many other countries to get it to be highly diffused, and so on. So what are the 3 values that this speaks to? The first is interdisciplinarity, because for us to make a difference, we always want to move from my left to the right. And to be able to do that, you might require a gender specialist. You might require a social worker. You might require a business major. You might require a lawyer to enable this to happen. Although typically technology comes from the sciences and engineering, for it to be able to find diffusion in society, there has to be those other disciplines that come into play. And therefore, there is the interdisciplinary value. The second value is integration of undergraduate and graduate education. And I'll give an example. You may have a PhD up here, they do something, but before this thing can diffuse to the right, it has to drop down at a level where somebody is a senior for dropout. And I'll give a case of a study case that illustrates that. So in a way, we are combining graduate and undergraduate and even lesser education for us to make a difference. And the last value is translating results, perhaps from any level, into public good or goods. In other words, something is not an innovation until it's very widely used. So that's the essence of that slide. And I think this is a good point also to stop before I get into study cases that further illustrate this construct. Questions, comments?
Scholars, any questions so far?
None? What do you
Father,
know?
we are following. We are following.
Okay.
We shall have a question later.
Okay. All right. You know, when a teacher doesn't hear any questions, you make them nervous. Well, I hope there'll be questions at the end, and we don't have a lot of time. So let me move on to case studies. I just want to present this case to illustrate further my point. And I'm developing actually 10 of these cases to help teach. You know, we plan to have doctoral students in this center, and we want to produce this type of doctoral student who subscribe to this idea. But at the same time, we see these study cases as informing, for example, undergraduates or students on a college to find a way how they can be relevant. Let me introduce this young woman. Her name, we'll call her Belinda. And Belinda, I ran into her on a street here going to the market, going downtown. She was pushing this wheelbarrow full of briquettes, or briquettes. These are briquettes made with soil. She told me she's 23, and she dropped out of senior 4, became a mother, and she's trying to survive. And this is what she does. She makes these. She makes them in Kirooza, a little bit further down in Kirooza, and she makes the sales routes on foot with a very heavy wheelbarrow in Mukono downtown through Nabuti. She can sometimes make a sales route to Seta and so on. I was really, really impressed. I said, well, I need to visit your manufacturing facility, if you call it that. So the picture I show there, she was showing me how she makes it by hand. And on my right is her storage area. She's made a number of these. So she loads these on a wheelbarrow and sells them. So I offered to shadow her, and I shadowed her on one of those routes. And actually I helped push the wheelbarrow for the major part of that. For me to have that experience of what life is like for her. So I love this study case, and I'm building a number of these because they speak to a number of elements. The first element, to come up with a concept of briquette and define how this briquette is put together, perhaps was done at a very high doctoral level or high STEM level. But after it's been analyzed, it's found its way that these senior 4 dropouts can make this product in her own home. And she's such an entrepreneur that she's able to take it and sell it. She has customers. I shared a little bit of this last week with the students that were in person who stayed behind, and a couple of them volunteered to do some research, because this is the other element of being engaged with her that it did. That one, it showed opportunities. Opportunity number one, that perhaps this young woman needs a better cart or a better vehicle by which to transport her products on foot that doesn't require a lot of energy. Something may exist on the market, but it might be too expensive. The price point for something like this has to be equal or less than a wheelbarrow. So I wondered, can our engineering students develop this? Another opportunity, it's very labor intensive for her to do what she does. Is there an opportunity to automate rather than making one at a time, she can maybe make 20 or 100 at a time. As a matter of fact, in continued communication with her, there is a customer who buys maybe 50,000 worthy of these things, and he packages them and puts them on the market in some type of store. This individual is asking her to automate the making so that all of these things are equal in size. So maybe again, students can find a way of designing this for her. The point I want to make here is that you can see how one could be relevant in different ways. Relevant, maybe to do research to find out, or how much charcoal does this briquette save by going and conducting a study with the customers. When I shadowed her, I got a list of her customers. And as I said before, I've already had 2 honors students volunteer to do this work. So we're just waiting for the REC permission for us to start the work. So the volunteers are being relevant. If we get other students to design or make her life better, we speak of relevancy. So I feel like, a case study like this, and what I mean by a case study is to be able to write up this story in a 3,000-word essay and accompany it with the development of a video that may be 15 minutes or 20 minutes. And this becomes a piece that can be used to teach at all levels. Another opportunity here, as I moved around with her, talking to her customers, she lacked a business savviness. She would, drive or push her cart or her wheelbarrow and find out who needs. Whereas it would have been better if she took phone numbers and she called them. And if she had only 3 people in Mukono downtown that need a product, she would only bring those products. Listening. So maybe the center, if it comes to be, should have an academy where it brings people like Belinda, to sharpen their ability to do what they do. So I hope as I say this, most of you are finding places where you can be relevant. Perhaps maybe I stop at this also and see if there are any questions, and if there is none, I'll just go through and finish up. I think we are almost running very close to time. Couple of questions, let's say.
Scholars, any question or any concern? Yadeng Francis, you sent in the chat some time back that you weren't, you were not able to start with us. Could you please say something in particular why you need clarification, maybe?
Good evening. I'm not really in a conducive environment right now, but I can listen. That's why I had muted the call. But I came in a bit late because I was struggling to get in a quiet place to talk. I just wanted a brief recap of what was going on. But maybe if it's convenient for our facilitator, maybe he can retake us through at the end of the whole process, if that's okay. But I really was lost at the beginning. I wasn't understanding anything.
What I want to suggest is perhaps maybe we go to the end.
Then they can
cycle back up.
Sure.
How about that?
That's very okay.
Thank you.
So those with questions, kindly note them. Okay, Dalton.
Now, thank you very much, Professor, for such an enriching presentation. I have a very great concern from the statistics that you presented that in the context of our country, Uganda. So you mentioned from the statistics that so you percent of Ugandans live on less than $1 or 4,000 Ugandan shillings. If I got that right. And according to the NDP's national development plans, we are by 2040 we should be a middle income society or country. So it's quite really confusing how if by 2021 70% of the population still lives below that amount in a single day, but someone in government says that by 2040 we shall be in a middle income economy. I think I need guidance on that. It's really quite confusing. Thank you.
Maybe before Professor responds to that, Angela is asking how long does she, I think the lady you're talking about of briquettes, take to manufacture the briquettes?
Well, let me start with the confusing question of 2040 being a middle income country and where we are. I think that being the target of 2040 being a middle income country is aspirational. You know, we aspire to be that. Whether we're going to make it or not is the question. So that's one angle. The other angle is it depends on how you measure middle income. You know, averages can be deceiving. You could have 70% of the people making 4,000 shillings a day, but then have 10% of the people making $10 million a day. So if you average the population, you're going to find that the average income is high. And if this is the measure you're going to use to judge whether you're middle income or not, you may say we've achieved it. But to me, and to a lot of people, that is misleading. That's the tyranny of averages. I want to tend to say, I want to look at the distribution of income and use another measure to say whether we are moving towards that middle income. So this is another way to answer the question. I think for me, it's clear politicians and everybody have aspirations. And therefore, it's good for them to set these goals so that their policies are designed in such a manner that gets us there. But whether we do or not is slightly a different question. I hope that addresses your question.
It really addresses my question very well. Thank you so much.
Okay, the second question is, how long does it take Belinda to do this? It takes a long time. The thing you see in the picture, she was just demonstrating to me. That day she wasn't making. She just wanted to show me how she does this. But the pile you see on my right, these are two, she manufactured these, I think, over 4 sessions. She collects clay, she collects rusenyente. Rusenyente is a powder that remains behind after you sold the charcoal. She incorporates them, almost like you are pounding mortar for building. And then by hand, she makes one by one. So it takes her quite a long time to do this. I have not I haven't experienced the whole thing, but I've offered next time she makes a whole batch that I'll go and be part of it, and also make with her the way she makes, so that I have that feel for the pain, the pain points, and how long it takes. This is how I think one is in a better position to come up with interventions, by just experiencing it. So, so that's my answer to that question. And I hope it's not an exact answer, but I guess you get the sense of magnitude of work for making this by hand. There are people who developed automation, a little bit of automation to make more of these. The thing is, can she afford it? And it might be finance. That's where some of you who are in finance can say, well, how can you lend a woman who doesn't have land, doesn't have anything, how can you lend them money to be able to improve their business? This is a challenge. Now there are ways people can do this, particularly mobile money companies. So I'm getting the signal to hurry it up so that we don't eat up more time. So let me go on to my last slides.
Maybe, Professor, before we go to the last slide, let's listen to this question and feedback from the chat. This says, just intrigued by the idea of desiring to be change makers as a relevant scholar. Is it not good to always understand grassroots challenges and explore ways of making a contribution in a way that will improve lives?
Absolutely. One of the difficulties with the Ugandan maybe culture setting, is that certain things, we sometimes consider them beneath us. Let's say if you grew up in Kololo in a big house and you're a student here, you might consider being seen pushing a wheelbarrow downtown Mukono to be a thing you shouldn't do. Yet, if you really want to understand the predicament and understand and want to make a difference, there is no other way you can do that without being part of it, without doing with the people you want to help. It was very interesting as I walked with her. This was so unusual for her, for a professor, to be pushing a wheelbarrow. She says, well, what would your fellow professors say when they see you? I said, I really don't care what they say. She says, well, they're going to say you are bewitched, that you are. I mean, it's very unusual for her, but I think this is the way, I listen to a lot of change makers, people who've made change. And my next piece is going to be, if indeed I get a chance to do it, will be on that. The people who have inspired me the most are people who've put on shoes of the people they want to help and had a very good feel. And if a lot of these people, they've made changes because they've done so. I've got examples that I can talk about. In the book, I showed a book that I wrote last time. In that book, I cover two people, very inspirational. So I want to say to you, as an honors student in one of the most expensive schools in the country, that it's not beneath you to go and pound mortar with Belinda, because if you indeed aspiring to be a change maker, and most of the time, this is the best way to do it. And I don't know if that answers the question. So let me try to close. I'm almost an hour. So one of the things I'm trying to do within the center is to create this opportunity to bring my American students and team them up with students here, and they work on these types of projects. I've done this before. There is this called IRES program, for which actually today I started writing a proposal. I've done it before with Makerere. You can see my American students working with Makerere students. Through this program, we've actually commercialized some products. This was one of the first products, was a cooler that doesn't use electricity. We introduced it for milk, evening milk. We introduced it in the Mbarara area. It bombed, it didn't work. But that's the nature of commercializing. So we came back, again working with the students. And now we've got a product called EverCooler, branded as EverCooler, that is commercial here in Uganda, but also commercial in Burkina Faso. So this is real, it's not classroom notes, or it's a real product that has gone out and made a difference in people. And this is what I wanted the center to look like, or to be like, engaging people to be relevant. All these students here are being relevant. These are American students. These are some of these two, I'm very close to these two because I know them for life. If they can come from America and come and join in the most dirty or most operation to do something that make a difference, I don't see why we can't. And so I just show this to say, perhaps we're going to do this and more of this. I'm going to skip this. These are some of the ideas I have in the IRES I'm writing. I'm going to skip this and just go to the last slide and see if we can deal with the questions, or maybe we can recap what what one of the students wanted us, one of the speakers wanted us to recap, and I don't know how to do that.
I think we can do that in 3 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe.
I do that myself. Okay. So let me go back up at the beginning of the slides and say that in the first talk I gave, I used the theme, be relevant, with a focus on persuading you that undergraduate experiences are good for you. And I captured those in 7 things worthy knowing. And then today I'm continuing on the second piece in this series to talk about Sustainable Development Center. And I said this is my major job. The center is not yet in place, but I'm developing it. Its development has been blessed by Cabinet, and they are putting some money behind it. And we are starting to do it. I have a committee of professors that are working on this. So my sense is that in a year or so, we'll have a thriving center at UCU that does this. And I presented this in a way to show you as one of the examples through which you can be relevant. And the inspiration for this comes out of these Sustainable Development Goals put out by the UN. And you can hear the capture, no poverty, decent work and economic growth, good health, quality education, and so on and so forth. So the center area of inquiry is at the intersection of water, energy, food/feed. I call this the sweet spot for development. And, we presented this grand development problem through this pyramid. And I think maybe this is where somebody came in, where we're showing a large number of population the world over making less than $1,500 a day. And we made it very local here to say that there are 70% of Ugandans who live on less than $4,000 a day, 4,000 shillings, excuse me. And so the take-home message at this point was that making a difference for these people in a way of increasing their incomes is one way we can be relevant. Whatever we do, and I want to see everybody to see themselves in this mix. That is to say, if you're a lawyer, can you contribute your training to doing this? If you are an educator, can you contribute? So this is not, I'm an engineer, but this is not just about engineering. It's about all of us making a difference. And this increasing incomes being the most holistic way we can make a difference. And so this chart here captures the values of the center. And I think maybe I'll stop here because this is where the conversation started. Is that okay for somebody who wanted a recap?
Yeah, Dengue Francis.
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay, then we have a question in the chat. Dear Professor, phenomenal work you're doing. It's an appreciation.
Thank you.
Is it possible to put some honors college scholars on your research team, writing teams, etc.?
Well, that's why I'm here. I already mentioned that I already have 2 volunteers. And, you know, I as I shared with, you know, your honors college director, Ms.
Pamela Tumebaze.
Ms. Pamela Tumebaze, was that I have this affinity with the honors colleges. I was at my institution, I was an associate director for one of the honors colleges, our honors college, and I found honors students the best to start with when you have an initiative like this. And I'm coming here and speaking to you with the dream that perhaps in a lot of the activities that we going to do, we are going to have a number of honors college students participate. As a matter of fact, I have another project that has an agricultural skill set required. The Dean Kizito has already tapped an honors student who is doing agriculture to be one of our research assistants. And I'll show, let me just go to the slide of this slide here, where I say I want to develop, for example, study cases. And I said before, there is a writing in about 3,000 words on each of these. And there is a video. I've got a feeling here we've got a great journalism college or faculty. I'm hoping I can engage these journalist students to go out and get clips or even maybe write scripts for each of these. I'll write the stories, and then I can engage them to write scripts, and then we can find clips to make. I don't know about the editing here. I've got great editing at my institution that is very, very cheap, done by students, but it's very, very good. I have some of the work we've done. We have videos, YouTube videos. These were done by students at my institution. So I hope to replicate the same thing here. So you can see now we are having a journalist student being relevant by participating in the process, maybe indirectly, that makes a difference. I hope that answers the question.
Yes, thank you very much, Professor. Ngero, over to you.
Yes, thank you very much, Professor Chisalita. I'm very privileged to have interacted with you I think it was Thursday last week. You're burning with ideas and a passion to improve lives of the poor people, which is very great, very inspiring. And I urge us scholars to be change makers, to always work towards improving livelihoods of everyone. If we are all well off, then the world can be a better place, definitely. At this juncture, I would love to invite our presenters for today. We're going to have 4 presenters today, beginning with Miss Sanyu Annette Najemba, then Mr. Mogaga Leslie Dubois, followed by Miss Omgisha Ruth, and finally Miss Akelo Meka. Be reminded that you have 10 minutes in total for your presentation, and 7 minutes shall be your presentation, and 3 shall be feedback, questions and answers. Thank you very much. So Ms. Sanyu Annette, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Joshua. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Professor William for the insightful information he has provided to the college. Thank you so much, Professor William. May I take this opportunity to present my paper under the theme of leadership and personal development. And my subtitle will be Anger Management. Joshua, can I start?
Yes, please go on.
Yes, please go on.
Okay. In the world, there are different tribes whereby every tribe describes anger or defines anger, or it has a different way how to define anger. And in different languages, for example, in English, it's called anger. Luganda, Lunyankole, Gisu, it's called Busungu. Then Lunyarwanda, Umujinya, Swahili, Hasira, Rusogo, Busungu, Rukonje, Echiniya, Runyoro, Echiniga, then Rudama, Nge. So I'm going to talk about anger management. For a leader, it's very important to know how to control your anger. Anger is a very good emotion, but it becomes very dangerous when you fail to control that anger. Remember, leaders have to lead by example. So if you're unable to control your anger, trust me, the people you lead will not be able to control your anger because you're not leading by example. Therefore, for the purpose of the leadership and personal development, especially to the leaders in the Honors College and in the world, I focused more on the anger emotion. And I would like to, as I wait for Mr. Moro to share the slides or to project the slides. Mr. Moro, may you please project the slide?
Which slide exactly?
The introduction slide. Yes, no. Okay, that one, the abstract. It says, in real life, there are very many emotions people experience, which are both good and bad. And some of the examples of these emotions include anger, fear, disgust, joy, trust, etc. And according to Robert, he says, some people consider these emotions as good emotions, whereas others consider them as bad emotions. But for the purpose of anger on one side, it's a very good emotion, but it becomes very dangerous when you fail to control it and it instead controls you, which is a very bad thing to the leaders. So I would like to present on how a leader can become an expert in handling anger. I would like to start with an introduction. Anger, in simple terms, refers to an emotion someone expresses in response to a threat or something wrong done to him or her. For example, when someone tries to hit you, let me say using what? Okay, if someone tries to cause a threat to your life, automatically you will become angry in order to respond to that threat. It may be you may be trying to defend yourself by expressing anger to that threat. In most cases, expression of anger is a good emotion, and we should try as much as possible not to accept that anger to control us, but rather we people should control it. Then also anger, some people define anger as an instinctive survival response. It is related to the first one. Then also anger is a learned reaction. What does this mean? This means that there is a situation where different suggestions have been put at the table about anger. For example, during our childhood, we always learned that in order to get what you want, we were supposed to be angry. Like you pressurize your mom, your dad. When your parent refuses to give you that thing, automatically you have to become angry. And at the end, the parent will feel pity on you. He or she will eventually provide that requirement you have requested from him or her. Then there are people who express anger through yelling, whereas other people have been taught that anger is a bad emotion. Therefore, we should always be careful when dealing with anger. Nevertheless, this anger can take two best forms. For example, there is an outward form and an inward directed form. An outward directed form focuses our displeasure on something other than ourselves. For example, in Genesis chapter 4, verse 2 to 16, it talks about where Cain killed his brother Abel. That shows that Cain expressed his outward anger on his brother Abel. Then also the inward directed response, this focuses our displeasure upon ourselves, which manifests itself as depression. That is illustrated in John chapter 4, verse 1 to 11. Sorry, here I put Jonah. Sorry, it's John. Then there are different biblical views about anger, as you see in the slide, where Proverbs say, fools vent their anger, but the wise quietly hold it back. What does this mean? This means we cannot control our feelings of anger, but we can control how to express them. And according to the verse, fools, instead of controlling their expressions of anger, they instead vent it or throw them around in an healthy manner. which hurts those people around them, but the wise ones feel that anger and choose to express it in a healthy manner through different actions, of which I will explain below when I reach on the slide of how to control anger. Then Proverbs chapter
Miss
15.
Sanyu,
Okay.
you have 2 more minutes of your presentation.
Okay, may we proceed to the next slide? There are various causes of anger, and some of them, there are very many, but I decided to point out a few. One of them includes loss of patience, disrespect, disappointments, loss of patience. For example, when you wait for something such as an interview and you're told to wait for 30 minutes, but the interviewer takes a period of 5 hours, trust me, you will lose your patience and you will end up becoming annoyed. Then disrespect. Some people, actually everyone wants to be respected, but if you disrespect that person, automatically that person will feel as if, I don't know, that person you disrespect will not take you as an important person in his life or her life, because he will feel I beg your pardon, disrespect. Under this, every person wants to be respected, sorry. So if you disrespect that person, automatically that disrespect will make him or her annoyed, and everything he will try to be doing, he will not see any value in that thing. Then also disappointments. Under this disappointment factor, when you promise something to someone, please, may you take the urge to fulfill that promise so that you don't disappoint that person. Otherwise, you will end up making that person angry. And then we shall proceed to solutions of anger, how to control your anger. Identify the source of anger. Try to ask yourself, is there something specific that you are angry at? For example, there are people who just feel like becoming angry at a certain person when there is no any reason for becoming angry. So you should first identify that source of anger. Is it appropriate for you to become angry or not? So if it's not appropriate or it does not make sense for you to become angry, then you just leave that thing and don't pay attention to it. Then the second one, choose a cause and find a solution, which is also related to the above. So if you find the source of anger, for example, if there are very many different places where people go to, for example, recreational places, I don't know, bars, what. For example, those people that go to the bars may end up fighting, you know, those things. So if you choose.
Sanyu, please
Hello?
conclude your
Yes,
presentation. Please conclude your presentation in the next 30 seconds.
All right.
Yeah.
May you please. Then there is also focus on what you can control or let go of what you cannot control. Then have constructive conversations, strengthen yourself, have self-esteem. Then read your inner radar. I think those are some of the solutions to anger. When you follow that, trust me, as a leader, you will be able to control your anger and not inventing it to people around you. May you please proceed to the next slide. Conclusion. It says, according to Grom, the traditional view highlights the destructive side of anger expressions, noting that they are frequently associated with negative leadership outcomes, such as follower dissatisfaction, reduced liking of a leader, and perceived ineffectiveness. For example, reacting to problems with anger makes leaders less effective because it contributes to the perception that a leader is abrasive and aggressive and will bully and mistreat followers when something goes wrong. Therefore, try as much as possible to control your anger because it contributes more on your leadership skills and personal development. Thank you so much. Below, there are different golden thoughts about anger. Thank you for listening to me.
You're welcome, Sanya. I'm so proud of you.
Monica, please behave. We have a moderator.
You're welcome, Monica.
Thank you very much, Sanyu, for your very good presentation about anger. And at this juncture, let me welcome reactions, comments, and any advice or questions to this presentation. I'm going to entertain 2 reactions to which Ms. Sanyu shall respond. Maybe let me read the first one from the chat by Odidi Jehoshaphat, which says, Anet Sanyu, first I would like to comment how fast you read. Very cool. Then a question, should anger be controlled or should it completely be done away with? Granted, it is a natural emotion. Another question.
I think she can respond to that, and then Professor William will give feedback.
All right.
And his comment on the paper.
Thank you, Mr. Odidi. I'd like to say that since anger is a daily emotion that someone experiences it's very hard for you to go away with it for good. So I would advise you just to learn those techniques of how to control anger whenever you experience anger. Thank you so much.
Yes, maybe personally, my observation is an example, a real life experience from you, from when you experienced anger and you were able to control it and avert it would be probably a fatal situation, could have gone a long way. But thank you very much for your paper. And Mr. William, Mr. Chisalita, in 1 minute, please give your reaction to the paper.
Well, I just want to thank Ms. Virunji for a wonderful presentation. I really have 2 comments. One is on sometimes administrators use anger deliberately as a tool and they use it in a controlled manner. But so this is an aspect that perhaps could find its way in the narrative of controlling anger. Not every time you see an administrator angry, that the anger is out of an emotion. It could be deliberate as a tool for their style of management. So that's just my comment that somehow I think in this conversation one should be cognizant of. The other is on the essentially the presentation. Is just a little bit of an advice that sometimes it's very there is this, I don't know if the rule, you know, the rule that perhaps each slide should not contain more than 6 ideas. This always is very helpful, and rather than using a lot of writing, I see a lot of places you had bullet item. This is commendable, so that you're gonna fill in of those bullet items. But wherever you have full sentences that you are trying to read, this causes a confliction between your listeners, because your listeners are also reading. So reducing those to bullet items so that you can fill in, so that the listeners are focusing on your sound or your face if you're in place. These are just two comments, but otherwise it's a very good topic, a wonderful topic, that especially very fitting to people, to the audience who are aspiring to be leaders or who are already leaders, and to help them do a better job. Thank you again. And at this point, I'd like to apologize that I've got to step out. I'm not going to be able to listen to the rest of the presentations because I've got another commitment coming up. Thank you again.
Thank you so much, Professor, and everyone for their wonderful comments. I hope to improve on that.
Thank you, Samuel.
Professor, for your time. Thank you very much for listening in. And thank you for the great presentation. And thank you, Ms. Sanyu, for your presentation. For those who have not had a chance to react to Ms. Sanyu's comments, good news is we have more presenters. At this juncture, I would love to invite Mr. Mugaga Leslie Lubowa for his presentation. You have 7 minutes, Mr. Mugaga. Please try to put it within 7 minutes. Mr. Mugaga Leslie.
Yes, good evening, everyone. My name is Mugaga Leslie Lubowa. I'm a third year student pursuing a Bachelor's of Science in Economics and Statistics. And I'll be presenting my paper towards data competencies for Uganda's undergraduates in the post-COVID-19 workplace. My paper flow is as follows. I'll state my thesis. I'll elaborate some of the new terminologies in my paper. That's digital transformation, data literacy. I'll delve into the importance of data literacy. I'll discuss how one can become data literate and recommend some practical solutions to boost data literacy, and then conclude. Now, data literacy has become an essential skill set required for the evolving labor market in the 21st century, with new kinds of data-related jobs emerging in the global economy. Therefore, it is imperative for undergraduates seeking to enter the job market to equip themselves with the data literacy skills in order to remain relevant and competitive in the evolving future of work. Now, to justify my thesis statement, I will elaborate some of the unfamiliar terms, starting with digital transformation. Digital transformation refers to the integration of digital technology into all aspects of business, fundamentally changing how the business is operated and how it delivers value to customers. Now, over the past decade, the workplace has steadily evolved to incorporate digital technology. And with the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, this trend has been accelerated, and we see majority of various organizations, including schools, migrating towards digital platforms. Now, what does that mean? This means that some jobs in the workspace have become obsolete because they're being replaced with technology, the likes of, if I'm to give an example of banks. Banks are replacing bank tellers with online banking and automated teller machines that do the work that the bank tellers would actually do. So this means that with digital transformation, some jobs are becoming obsolete, and the new jobs that are coming up are more or less involved with data, because to remain competitive, businesses are harnessing the data that is collected using their technology to make better informed decisions. So before we can go into data literacy, we'd like to define what data is. Basically, data refers to individual pieces of information. They're often numeric and they're recorded and used for analysis. So basically, data can vary. It can be anything from your heartbeat, from your steps, from sales of a company. And basically, data is divided into two categories. We have numerical data and categorical data. Now, under numerical data is basically data that is expressed in numbers, and it's collected in number form. It can be measured, it can be added, let's say the number of students in a class or something like that. And then numerical data is divided further into two: discrete and continuous data. These are all types of data. Discrete data is data that is countable, that is whole for a person. And then continuous data is data that occurs in intervals. Let's say your CGPA is continuous data. We have categorical data. This is information that can be divided into groups. For instance, we're looking at, let me say, the sex of a person. We're looking at the level of education. So it's also divided into two. So basically, this is just a snapshot in what data is. In order for us to start being data literate, we need to appreciate what data is and what it means. So what is data literacy? Data literacy is basically the ability to read, work with, analyze, and communicate with data. Now, appreciating the prior slide and knowing what data is in its totality, that's when we can be able to start working with data. Data competencies, these include, so basically you're able to recognize the appropriate data for a specific purpose, right? Understanding how and where and when to apply the data analytic tools and processes, as well as interpreting data visualizations like graphs and charts, and then critically thinking about your findings in the data analysis that you've done, as well as communicating these insights to, let's say, your clients, your people. So what's the importance of data literacy? Now, data literacy in the workplace, it helps us understand numbers, charts, and graphs created by others. So, for instance, for you to be data literate, you don't need to have a statistics background, or it's for everyone. It's essential in the workplace because you're interfacing with these statistics that will help you make a more informed decision within the workplace. And for you to be able to do that, you need to understand these charts, the graphs that are created maybe by someone else. And then it also helps us organize data for analysis, basically how to manipulate data and be able to know that this is what I need this data for, this is what I'm going to use it for, and then this analysis I'm going to carry out. So it also helps us determine which content is valuable and meaningful. So like I said, there are all sorts of data, and for you to be able to sieve out what you need, like what you want to use to make a decision, it's also a skill set that is gotten by being data literate. So it also helps us to ask the right questions about the data that we have. So much as, yes, you know how to manipulate data, but if you're not able to critically think about some of the questions that you ought to ask in order to deliver value for your organization and your company, then it may be very tricky for you to gain a competitive edge over other companies or other employees for that matter. So it also helps us to effectively visualize and communicate our insights that we've gotten from data analysis. Another thing about data literacy, especially when it comes to our personal data, it helps us be more vigilant in terms of the decisions we're making in relation to other crucial concerns in the digital age. If you have to look at maybe who we share our data with, in terms of our biodata, in terms of, let's say, the sites where we put vital information like our national ID number, stuff like that. So how do we become data literate? So data literacy is based on four cornerstones. That is to understand, engage, analyze, and reason. So before you can start working with data, you need to actually understand, like I explained, the various types of data. You need to know their dynamics.
You have 2 minutes to
Okay,
summarize your presentation.
I'm about to wrap up, yes. We need to appreciate what the bar graphs mean, the pie charts mean, and what they mean for you as an individual who's trying to elaborate to your audience, right? How do you draw potential insights from this data that you've gotten? Then engaging with data, it helps us to appreciate the data in its context, right? What type of data is it? What analysis methods are we going to use to interpret, visualize, and communicate it? And what context are we communicating it to the people? How do we simplify it for someone who may not necessarily, for a client who may necessarily be well-versed with analyzing data? So analyzing is basically the most vital aspect, whereby you learn, you appreciate, and critically think about the data that is before you and derive value from it, whereby you act on it by making a decision based off that data. Then reasoning is basically one of the complex aspects of data literacy, whereby you can communicate it through visualization and emphasis of insights that try to justify why you're making a decision based on the data that you've collected. So some of the practical solutions that undergraduates, especially in Uganda, owe to take, the starting place is learning the basic analytic tools like Microsoft Excel. That's one that is actually used in most places, and it may look like a very generic tool, but it's very potent in the workplace, and many people are required to use it. So again, for you to be data literate, it doesn't matter which profession you're in, but rather it's how you add value to your organization in terms of analytics and making data-driven decisions. Another practical solution to boost data literacy is for students to seek out online resources. One of the best resources I've come across is the Data Literacy Project by Click. Click is a data analytics company that seeks to inform anyone who is willing to become data literate on a personal or corporate level. Then another thing is universities should introduce foundational courses, just like we have foundational courses in other sectors like religion. It is very very good for universities to aid their students in this data literacy, because it is the way of the future. Data is the new gold, and it's imperative that we all know how to manipulate it and derive insight from it. I'm almost done. Concluding, data literacy has become important with the digital transformation that the COVID-19 pandemic has accelerated. Organizations will need more people to interpret data generated by this technology and draw insights and ask the right questions in the post-COVID-19 workplace. Therefore, only data literate graduates are most likely to remain relevant in the post-COVID-19 workplace. Allow me to conclude with this clip. It's going to take a minute. So yeah, I'm done. As I conclude, I'd like to tell everyone that it's important for all of us to be data literate because that's the way of the future. In the digital age, you're supposed to know how to interpret data that is relayed in front of you so that you can derive valuable insights and make data-driven decisions. Thank you so much.
Right. Thank you very much, Mr. Mgaga Leslie, for your very insightful and very informative and very current paper about data literacy, especially in this context of the COVID-19 pandemic. So I will welcome 2 reactions on the paper. Anyone with a reaction, please unmute and speak.
I just want to say thank you to Mgaga Leslie Lubowa for this wonderful presentation. The organization of the slides are so good, and I implore all the scholars to borrow a leaf. I would say a tree, but a tree may be so heavy for you. However, Mr. Mgaga, next time when you're presenting and you're sharing the screen, there is an option for sharing the audio as well. As you may, as some scholars may realize, we're not hearing anything from the video that you played to us, but by visualizing, by looking at the video, it was communicating something. Thank you very much.
Apologies for that. I did not know that audio.
The second reaction.
Good evening, class. I'd like to appreciate Mgaga Leslie for his informative paper and for his well displayed slides. Sorry, I don't know if it's my what? My noise. I don't know. It's very informative in that it informs some of our papers, and just like Odidi had written, it would empower his paper more to understand Uganda, or to bring out Uganda's context of why we are still data illiterate, or the grassroots of our data illiteracy as a country. And yes, you've presented to us how the practical solutions, but it's very important that we also get to know why Uganda as a nation, or approach Uganda as the context of a study, and understand why we still have a lot of data illiteracy, even when the world is moving towards a digital form. Thank you.
Can I respond to that and conclude?
Please, in 1 minute.
Yeah, the issue with data literacy is not a Ugandan problem alone. Like, I'm sorry about the clip, but yeah, very few nations, actually, even America, is struggling with the same issue of data literacy. So the issue of data literacy is not Uganda's problem alone, but for us to moving towards 2030, we're in the 4th industrial revolution, and we're going digital in every platform in our lives. Basically, it's important for all of us to start with you in terms of informing yourself in terms of data literacy, because you've seen the COVID-19 graphs all over the place, but people do not know how to interpret them. So it's going to be like reading and writing, or maybe typing in the workplace, right? Whereby you're expected to know how to type. So also in the future, much as the time hasn't yet come, it's imperative for all of us to prepare ourselves
Thank you very much, Mr. Mugaga, for your presentation and for your response to, I think he's having
to
a
know
network
that
problem.
regardless of whether you're a lawyer, to work and
All right. At this juncture, I would love to present our next to welcome our next presenter, Miss Omgisha Ruth. For our presentation, please be reminded that you have 7 minutes for a presentation and 3 minutes for reactions. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Joshua. And good evening, scholars. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can.
All right. I'm called Omgisha Ruth, pursuing a bachelor's degree of social work and social administration. And my topic is about the influence of trans-theoretical model in obesity behavior change under the leadership interventions topic. Wow. Yeah, so obesity is a foremost health problem that sets the stage for emergence of a variety of illnesses such as heart diseases, diabetes, high blood pressure, and some cancers. Yeah, it can harmfully affect the length and quality of life if not prevented. Therefore, taking protective measures is very crucial. However, this is a process that is required to check and support the behavioral change to an individual. Yeah, the most key term here is obesity. And obesity is a complex disease involving an excessive amount of body fat. It is not merely a cosmetic concern, but rather a medical problem that increases one's risk of other diseases. As I already mentioned above, very many diseases such as heart diseases and so on and so forth, and also very many health problems. Body mass index is a person's weight in kilograms divided by the square of their height in meters. That is an equation if you want to find your body mass index. Yeah, overweight followed by obesity is one of the major health problems of developed and developing countries today, and its prevalence is gradually increasing. According to the data of the World Health Organization 2016, there was approximately 1.9 billion overweight people and approximately 600 million obese adults in the world in 2014. Obesity is one of the serious health problems that sets the stage for the emergence of a variety of illnesses and can harmfully affect the length and quality of life if not given attention. If you do not take care of your health, eat healthy meals, eat on time, not eating all the time, but rather eat on time and prescribed meals, not prescribed, but at least have breakfast, have lunch and dinner, but not eating every after an hour, because that is one of the leading causes of overweight. Yeah, then my intervention, I'm using the trans-theoretical model. This model assesses an individual's, it is an intentional purpose change that focuses on the decision-making abilities of the individual instead of the social biological influences on behavior as other approaches tried. It assesses an individual's readiness to act on a new healthier behavior and provides strategies or processes of change to guide the individual. This model, Bernard, before you go to the stages of change, this model states that to enable change, interventions that are most suitable for an individual of an individual should be applied. So it establishes that change is really easy. It often requires a gradual progression of small steps towards a goal. You do not move one step and reach to where you want to be. It requires you to move step by step, because most cases like overeating, I would say some people get, I would say that some people their eating habits, when eating habits have changed, it requires you to take particular stages so that you can be able to adjust. You do not move in one day and stop eating the meals you've been used to eating. It's like drinking alcohol, how you get addicted, and you do not wake up one day and stop taking alcohol. It requires you to take some stages, obviously with help from people. Yeah. So it suggests that an individual may progress through 5 stages. You can go to the next slide, Bernard, when trying to modify their behavior. And the first one is pre-contemplation. This is the earliest stage of this mode of change, and it is characterized by ignorance. Someone is not aware of what's happening in their life. For example, in obesity, someone may not be aware that they are obese, they have too much extra weight. Then the second one is contemplation. This is when someone becomes alert and they start thinking about change. If they've been maybe, but though it also comes with contradictory emotions. They're actually not sure. They have reached a stage of thinking about change, but they are not sure, and the emotions are contradicting. Then the third stage is preparation. This is characterized by planning for change. It comes with small changes, and someone may try to collect data, maybe ask friends or ask a nutritionist, something like that. Then the fourth one is action. This is adopting to new habits. This is when someone takes a direct action in order to accomplish their goals. If their goal is to cut weight or maybe reduce on the amount of fats they consume in a day, they start taking that direction. Then the maintenance stage. This is when one maintains the new behavior and avoids moving backwards. If they have started waking up early in the morning and they eat fruits and take a glass of fresh juice, they will continuously maintain that for a period of time. Next slide. Yeah, then the approach.
Ms. Omgisha, you have 2 minutes for your presentation.
Okay. Let me try to go very fast. Yeah, the approach that in the first stage, I would, if I'm approaching this, I would use the pre-contemplation stage through awareness. This is whereby I can maybe put awareness through social media campaigns or use posters and flyers, as this can help the would-be victims to get aware of the effects of obesity and where they need to work on it. Then secondly, is feedback. Through in the contemplation stage, after the awareness, people will be able to weigh on the pros and cons of the behavior and confirm their readiness and ability to change. So I'm trying to rush through. Then self-help. This is when maybe if we can put up like health clubs, and then create a form of environment that people can be able to write down their goals and then prepare a plan for action. The reward stage is if someone has managed to work on themselves, go to a health club, reduce on the amount of fats they consume, and also and plan their meals so that they eat on time and not eat over time, then we can put a reward system and we reward them so that they are able to cope up and also thank themselves for the progress. Then the follow-up stage, the follow-up services, here you try to give them phone calls, or maybe if there's a WhatsApp group that everyone can communicate, such that you can reach out to them, because this helps them in the maintenance stage. Yeah. I'll conclude that people are often unwilling or resistant to change during the early stages, but they eventually develop a proactive and devoted approach to changing a behavior. Therefore, in addressing the issue of obesity, as identified in this paper, the trans-theoretical model is to a greater extent the best model to properly effect change in obese victims. Thank you so much. Joshua, back to you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Omugisha, for your presentation, which is current. You were addressing SDG 13 of good health and well-being. And thank you very much for introducing a model that can be very good for behavioral change to fight obesity. At this juncture, I would love to welcome only one reaction to the presentation. A reaction.
Thank you, Ruth, for your wonderful paper and your idea of addressing obesity. I don't know if this is going to be shelved or you're going to put it into practice and address this issue, because most people are suffering with this health problem, and I think it is a nice paper and it comes timely, especially when some scholars, I won't mention the names, they're really struggling with that aspect. So if you haven't thought of implementing it practically, please think about doing that. Thank you.
You're welcome, Bernard.
All right, thank you very much, Ms. Omugisha. And at this juncture, let me take this opportunity to welcome our very last presenter, Ms. Akelo Meka. The floor is yours. 7 minutes for presentation and 3 for reactions.
All right. Good evening, scholars. Please help me share my slides. Thank you. So I'm going to present about leadership intervention and change. And my topic is addressing substance abuse among university students, the role of leadership. Now, we know that, okay, my paper flow is as follows: thesis statement, definition of key terms, causes of substance abuse, consequences of substance abuse, leadership interventions at universities, recommendations, and then conclusion. Now, we know that entering university is the beginning of a new life for many students or even youth, like the transition from high school to university. It gives many university students freedom and novelty from their parental control. So they get involved in substance abuse, such as consumption and alcohol consumption and use of Cuba, drug addiction, and so many other forms of substance abuse. And we know that this all comes about as a result of excitement, freedom, new environments, and a whole lot of issues. So before I proceed, I'm going to define some terms. Addictive substance is any substance which changes the way the body functions mentally, physically, or emotionally. They include alcohol, tobacco, solvents and other drugs that are bought from the hospitals or even clinics. And then substance abuse is the excessive use of addictive substances, especially when the consumption or misuse of the substance is not for therapeutic purposes, but rather for the purpose of altering the normal functioning of the body and mind. Leadership is a practical skill that has the ability of an individual or group organization to influence or guide other individuals, teams, or entire organizations. And then finally, a leader is someone who can see how things can be improved and who rallies people to move towards the better vision. Now, causes of substance abuse, we have family, the behavior of family members. For example, when you find a student who comes from a family where the parent and the siblings are engaged in substance abuse, like excessive alcoholism, you realize that such a student is most likely to engage in substance abuse. And then also you realize that students who have parents who are neglectful, who don't really care much, who don't give them that attention that they require, are most likely to engage in substance abuse compared to those that whose parents are more affectionate and caring. And then we have peer groups as an interpersonal factor. A study was conducted at the university by a gentleman called Terion, and these students were recovering from substance abuse. So the participants of this study spoke of the difficulty in making friends, as most of their peers go to clubs where dances and alcohol and other substances are served. So you find that such students who are in recovery want to avoid that, but they cannot because their friends are engaged, are involved in that. So like there is a way peer groups influence people to act the way they desire them to act. So you find that they end up engaging in substance abuse in order to fit into the society. And then we have factors in campuses. For example, the freedom of students from that parental control. We know that university campus, people are free. There is no one who is going to push you or drag you around. You're free to do what you want. So like that freedom gives the students the opportunity to carry out experiments on all the things that they have been restricted from doing, such as drinking alcohol, because basically no one is going to follow them up. And we will see that in a study that was carried out at Tehran University, 61.3% of the respondents started smoking after entering university, whereas 63.3% of these increased their smoking when they joined university. So we can say that this freedom makes the students to engage more in substance abuse. And then we have the campus environment itself, where students joining university find it very stressful, like they're leaving home, they're going into another experience. So like this comes with mental health problems, and this mental health problems further cause lack of concentration on what the students read. And this brings about a vicious circle of a complex mental problem by inducing academic pressure. So in order to deal with this academic pressure, these students tend to engage in substance abuse. And then we have a widespread availability of the substances around universities. Like when you go to the shops, you go to the canteens, you find that there are so many substances that take form in terms of wheat cakes, cookies, and then sodas mixed with alcohol. So all this makes it very available and cheap for the students to embrace and afford. So they end up engaging in substance abuse. And then there is the need for cognitive enhancement. Like most students think that, when they engage in in smoking weed, it gives them a certain level of confidence that they can actually sit up the whole night to read, they can participate and have a whole level of confidence. So all this make them to engage in substance abuse. However, all this come with consequences, like it comes with effects. And of the consequences, next slide, please. You see that it affects the learning and teaching process at the institution as a whole. And this is students who are engaged in substance abuse usually don't pay attention. They enter class and they want to disorganize everything. The way they respond to the questions when asked, the way they behave in classes, it disrupts the learning process. The lecturer cannot continue with the lectures because you might find they're just making fun and the students are just laughing. And then it negatively affects the academics performance of the students. Like they fail to focus, they fail to concentrate because they're either
Miss
too hard.
Aquino,
Okay.
you have 2 minutes left for presentation. Please go on.
All right, leadership interventions at institutional level. Designing appropriate policy and strategies that can protect the students from substance problems. So we find that the university can develop strong university honor codes that can limit or prohibit substance abuse in universities. When students expect stronger sanctions for their actions, like they get to respect the academic integrity and policy of the university. And then the other thing the universities can do is to conduct a mandatory drug testing on students to screen for the misuse of the substances. Health education at universities, and this can come in form of extracurricular activities. It can come in form of having motivational interviews on drug misuse among the students, and also giving the students listening therapy. Media campaigns can also help the students to correct the misperceptions they have regarding to drinking and other substance misuse. The institutions can also provide alternative recreational options. For example, we find that students get bored by the university environment, so they tend to abuse substances in order to kill the boredom. So the university can come up with board games and other recreational options for the students to kill the boredom instead of engaging in substance abuse. And then management of substance-induced disorders by constructing a well-equipped dependence treatment center with sufficient medical supplies. Most institutions have counseling departments, but then some students come when they already have the addictions, they already have the mental disorders. So like they need these treatment centers to reduce the effects of stigma and also to help the students to cope up with the issue of being addicted to these substances. Yeah. Next slide, recommendations. And these are my recommendations to limit the burden of substance abuse among university students. Interventions at individual level that target individual students' factors that contribute to substance abuse among students. Interventions at interpersonal level that target relationship factors that influence substance abuse among students. And then also at institutional levels, the interventions can be made to target the attributes of institutions related to substance abuse. And interventions at community level that target attributes of community related to substance abuse among university students. And finally, interventions at societal level to target the attributes at national level related to substance abuse among university students. And I'll conclude by saying that this paper elaborated the problem of substance abuse in university students, and we provided some leadership-focused guidelines to prevent, control, and manage substance abuse among university students. Thank you so much for your time. And I hope you find this paper helpful. in case of any additions, you're welcome to contribute to make this paper better. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mecca, for your paper on substance abuse, because this is a problem that our peers are grappling with every day, and this paper comes in very handy. I would love to welcome one reaction to Mecca's paper. Hello, a reaction to Mecca's paper.
There is a hand from Aga Khan Musa.
Yes, please unmute and give your reaction.
Yes, hello everyone. I hope the evening is going on well. My name is Musa, and thank you, Joshua. I miss you already, my roommate. I hope you're fine at home. And thank you so much, Mr. Bernard and Madam Pamela, for always endeavoring to arrange these meetings. Now, Mecca, you have a very, very wonderful presentation. Yeah, I'm humbled. It's very nice. However, I don't know how best to always approach these people. I've happened to have quite a number of people whom we share hostels with, but these people, I would say drug addicts. You can imagine very early in the morning on a Monday morning, the whole corridor of your hostel, it's all smelling weed. So I've tried talking to a few of them, but these are people who never change, you know. And these are always the people who always, you know, shy away from, in case anyone is trying to advise them, or in case they happen to hear that there is a conference somewhere about this and this, they can never turn up. So I don't know, you as you, what do you think would be the best measure, you know, to interface these people and probably let them know that the drugs they are using are not safe and they're actually causing harm, you know? And these are university students, you know, that I know very well. But very early in the morning, someone is smoking. Anyways, I think you can tell me more about that. However, there is also an initiative. It was led by the Kabaka of Uganda. And I don't want to say, but it relates to the youth and the drugs, you know, and actually child abuse and all that. I have a number of stickers with me, and I'm sure since you've brought up this topic, probably you're very passionate about probably seeing that university students stop consuming these drugs. So I have a number of stickers. Probably we could locate a place, and I also have been having a number of bands, these bands, the ones for the wrists. I don't know why you understand me. I've given out a number of them because I got like, I think they were around 150, and I gave to a number of these students. So I think you reach out to me and we see how best we can put these stickers probably across the university. I think a message will be sent out to these people indirectly, and you never know, it could be a measure. But however, I need some small response. I don't know whether the professor could come in and guide us how we as people who stay with these drug addicts or consumers, how can we see that we change their lives, you know? Yeah, thank you so much. I'm waiting for the response, and may God bless you all.
Thank you very much, Musa, for your reaction. And in 30 seconds, I would love to invite Ms. Akila Mecca to conclude her presentation as we conclude today's class.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Joshua. I think I'll conclude by answering his question. first of all, we need to find out the root cause as to why they are engaged, they are doing what they are doing. Could it be that the problem is from home? Could it be that it's at campus? Could it be that they are depressed? You know, we need to find out these issues so that we address the situations from the root cause. And we'll use these same recommendations. If you could go through them, you will see that they come at different levels. So yeah, I could still reach out to you and we discuss more of how we can help these students. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much for attending class. Thank you very much, everyone, especially the presenters. It's been very insightful and very informative. Keep up the good work, and I hope it's been an inspiration to all of us to learn something today in all the fields that I've presented: data literacy, obesity, drug substance use. There is so much to learn. At this juncture, I'd love to welcome our head of department for a brief communication as we close today's class.
Thank you so much, Joshua. Thank you, scholars. Thank you. This is a big sacrifice that I am really I'm challenged by your dedication, and I'm very impressed. Thank you very much. I wanted to appreciate the scholars. Today's papers, all of them were right there on the mark, very relevant. Thank you. I need you to ensure that you support your paper with some up-to-date information. Keep it so that it stays relevant indeed. Otherwise, I'm very impressed with what you've made. I think a lot of projects can be forged out of what you've done, out of the papers that you've presented. I don't know whether you are going to explore that a little bit more. I really pray you do. There are some calls that I've been sharing with, we've shared with you actually on the platform, and all the 3 papers that have come out of this meeting can actually be used to be can be submitted to these calls. I pray that you try to grab some of these opportunities. Otherwise, thank you so much. May the Lord bless you. Please stay safe and let's keep praying for each other. Thank you.
All right, let's conclude today's class with the binding song. And I would love to request Miss Bionji Cynthia Muhomuza to lead us in the binding.
And maybe those who are able to turn on their cameras, please turn on so that I can take a picture as you're singing. And those without a nice or maybe a good background, you can put turn on your profile picture, but a video, your video would be nice. Wow, so beautiful and handsome. No. I think Virunji is not around. You can lead us, Joshua.
All right. Bind us together, Lord, bind us together with cords that cannot be broken. Bind us together, Lord, bind us together, Lord, bind us together with love. There is only one God, there is only one King. There is only one body, that's why we sing. Bind us together, Lord, bind us together with cords that cannot be broken. Bind us together, Lord, bind us together, Lord, bind us together with love. Thank you very much for attending today's class. Thank you very much for keeping up the spirit. A good night to you all.
Good night to Joshua.
Good
God
night.
bless you.
Good night.
It's a Sam Juice.
Sam Juice, you come, we have it. Why
But
not?
Musa, you need to give us those bangles.
Oh, the bangles. The bangles are actually done.
Can you imagine?
But I'll see if I can get more, because actually people were positive as I was giving them out. Thought maybe someone could be like, why would I wear a bangle by sexual abuse and all that? But people were wearing them. In fact, most of them were even coming to me. Someone told them, that guy there has them. Yeah.
I think we should find you there and you buy for us supper.
Where do you think I am? You're going to think it's the DH.
The background.
Dalton. All right. Stay blessed, everyone.
I think we should leave so that the recording can be saved. The other conversations can move on later on. We're around your office, so I can pass by.
I passed by.